Alright, ladies and gentlemen, MrSotko here. Welcome back to the channel, and today I got some really interesting news for you guys. So the first and main article that I just want to jump right into is the Zclassic co-founder steals a US Army tank after a series of odd tweets. Now, I just want to say, first and foremost, that he didn't actually take a tank. So, depending on what you want to classify a tank as, this is an M1 or an M1A2, what have you, and he did not take that. Instead, he actually took this, which is an M113 armored personnel carrier. So, kind of a tank. It has treads. So, either way. So, let's get into the story. So, Joshua Yabut, who previously worked as a developer for Zencash, and I know that's kind of weird because it said Zencash and then Zclassic, but I did a little bit of research, and I think he worked for both, because I see various articles talking about him, even before this incident, working with Zclassic, and then I see some working with Zencash. So I think it's both ways, in that sense. So led police on a cross-country chase for 2 hours, covering 60 miles, around the state of Virginia, news outlet reported June 6. You might be wondering, is this a real story? Yeah, we'll get into it a little bit more soon. Of course, you did already see the actual picture there. So Yabut's Twitter account, or the events surrounding the theft, which occurred during a training exercise, are murky. Yabut reportedly denied being under the influence of drugs, but released various odd tweets in the hours prior. So Yabut's Twitter account proclaims his support for Bitcoin hard fork Bitcoin Cash, which one of the messages addresses controversial major supporter Craig White, along with the words, "I'm ready to move to London." Other tweets from June 5th included, thinking about putting my packet in to TBH, man, I am thirsty, and where is this damn water buffalo? All right. Investigation continues, adding to the curiousness of the theft. The area in which Yabut eventually surrendered himself to police corresponded with that of a map the Zclassic co-founder also tweeted. He also included a Wikipedia article about the armored personnel carrier he stole in the same tweet. Law enforcement declined to comment on Yabut until an investigation currently underway comes to an end. So we are grateful that there are no injuries as a result of this incident, and we appreciate the great work of the Virginia State Police, Richmond Police Department, and other law enforcement and first responders who safely brought this situation to a close. Major General Timothy P. Williams, the Adjutant General of Virginia, meanwhile said in a statement quoted by multiple sources, at the same time, Zencash became the latest victim of a 51% attack machinations this week. All right. Reportedly losing over 500,000 in 3 double spend attacks, which occurred on June 2nd. So it does say here that somewhere in the article talking about how he intentionally put in a back door into this into the Zencash software. Excuse me, and now I cannot seem to find it. So where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I don't know where it is now. Okay. So Yabut also previously worked as a developer for Zencash, the cryptocurrency company said in a statement Wednesday. Yabut was a developer in the project's early stages, and he intentionally made a public method of attacking the system, which was a vulnerability that he coded in, according to the statement. So apparently, he's an okay developer, but an evil one that put in essentially a backdoor into Zencash, which was more than likely already fixed. And I think he actually worked on Zencash back in the summer of 2017, so he no longer is associated with Zencash or Zclassic. He just helped work on them a while back. So here's some of the
Virginia.
Video.
Going 40 miles per hour.
Is that like loose?
As witnesses did a double take inside the unarmed APC, say police, First Lieutenant Joshua Yabut had his gun but no ammo. Taking to Twitter during the 2-hour trip, Yabut posted photos and this video allegedly of him driving and tweeted, "Man, am I thirsty." Then, "This is Sovereign 6 actual. Any station on this net, do you read me?" To which someone replied, "You are coming in broken and stupid." A few minutes later, "Where is this damn water buffalo?" A reference to a military water
Yeah, I was about to say that's a reference to the military truck
trailer. The National Guard says
that has water. So, so it's not a tank. And you know what this really reminds me of is the old. It was back in San Diego. I think it was in the 90s. Yeah, 1995, I believe. Somebody took an M60 tank, which is a Patton, and drove it around the city.
The vehicle in question, a 57-ton M60 Patton tank.
And Able, we're over the head of it. We are rolling videotape.
The tank is fully equipped with a machine gun and a 105mm cannon,
Which is just-
and it appears to be bent on destruction.
Peace out, truck. Get him up out of here.
Hydrants, you got hydrants that are blowing water in the air now.
At this point,
Hydrants
police have
blowing
no
30,
idea
40
if
feet into the
tank is
water.
armed.
Have somebody get a hold of the armory and find out if this thing is loaded, if he can actually do any damage with it other than killing.
He runs into an RV here.
Not only is he going after parked cars,
So this is a pretty classic video. If you haven't already seen this by now, it's definitely worth a watch. And I'm sorry that it's so grainy. I think this is just somebody's YouTube video that was ripped from apparently the Discovery Channel. So you could probably actually find much better quality video, which I probably should have done before the video. But either way, it gets the point across. He ended up getting stuck and caught. And I believe he was killed, if I'm not mistaken. They opened the hatch, and I think they shot him, which, you know, it's not too surprising, driving around in a tank, you know. Maybe you're a little scared if you're a police officer. You could have a gun in there. Could be, you know, loading the turret. Who knows? And yes, you can get into the turret, at least on some tanks. Now, I'm not familiar with the Patton. However, I am familiar with the M1 Abrams, M1A1, particularly in the M1A2. I have been in them before, and you can get from the driver's seat to inside of the turret as long as the turret is at 90 degrees faced to the right, if I'm not mistaken. It was very, very, very long time ago. And you can actually crawl in through a little doorway in the turret. So you would be able to get in and essentially turn the turret manually and then get into the gunner's seat and then fire. But in this case, there was no ammo inside of it. And what happened was he ended up going somewhat parallel on the median, which was a concrete barrier at the time, and he got it stuck in between his treads. So that leads me to MrSotko's tank tips. Tips for anybody that decides to steal a tank or drive in a tank. MrSotko's tank tips. First tip: wear your helmet. Because when you accidentally forget that you're in a tank and you sit up and you hit your head on the top of the tank, you're going to be really lucky that you had a helmet on, because now you don't need 28 stitches in the top of your head. 2, the bitch plate on the back of an M1A1 Abrams that covers up some of the engine and the battery components in the back, not on the turret, but rather on the hull in the back, weighs a ton. And it really sucks to pick up. So make sure the new guy opens the bitch plate and not you. And also don't drop your spanner on the batteries, because there's like 12 batteries inside of an M1A1. And if you drop your spanner in there, which is a wrench for anybody that might be like, hey, what's a spanner? It's a wrench. It will weld itself to the batteries, and you'll be in big trouble. I'm not a mechanic, but I know somebody who did that. Always drive obstacles perpendicular to the obstacle. Just like you see here, if you want to go through a concrete barrier, can a tank do it? Absolutely, probably. Most barriers. Just make sure it's as perpendicular as possible and not parallel. Also, avoid train tracks on a tank. If you have to go over train tracks, again, go over them perpendicular. If you drive parallel on train tracks, then the tank can't really move off of the train tracks very well. And if you drive parallel actually on the tracks, goodbye to your tank tracks. So that was MrSotko's tank tips. I hope you guys enjoyed those tank tips. So yeah, Zclassic co-founder and Zencash co-founder developer went crazy. And when you're in the army and you get in trouble, you get in really big trouble. I would much rather go to a regular prison than a military prison. Trust me, I've never been in a military prison, but I'd imagine it's much worse. Let's just go with that. So moving on. So Zcash versus Monero, which is the better privacy coin? It's a Privacy coins are considered key to the crypto movement, which aims to put people in control of their money without governmental interference and oversight. Today, the market offers several privacy coins. Two of the most popular are Zcash and Monero. In this post, we compare the two in depth and see which comes out on top. Another tank tip I just remembered: watch your oil pressure. Don't crank out that engine, okay? And you might be like, hey, why are you doing a motorcycle thing? That's how you drive an M1 tank. Don't crank that engine too hard, okay? That oil is under a lot of pressure, and boom, your engine will just explode, and then you got to sit there, and nobody's going to be happy with you. If anybody else has any cool tank tips, put them in the comments down below. Because why not? Because this whole thing's about tank tips. Monero is a proof-of-work cryptocurrency. It was launched in April 2014 and uses the CryptoNote protocol. It evolved from BitMonero and originally Bytecoin, which was the first CryptoNote coin. It obfuscates transaction amounts and sending and receiving addresses by default. This means that transactions cannot be linked to a user or real-world identity. So how does Monero ensure privacy? Monero uses ring signatures, ring confidential transactions, and stealth addresses to obfuscate the transaction details, including the start and end points. Monero coins are also identical and cannot be linked back to their origins using a blockchain explorer. So Zcash is a proof-of-work crypto that is capable of private transactions, and it was released in 2016 of October. It uses a public blockchain, but transactions amounts and sending and receiving addresses remain private. Privacy is optional and does not come as default. It's based on Bitcoin Core's codebase, but uses advanced cryptographic techniques to ensure that transactions are accepted without all the data being visible. Technology behind it is called CryptoNote, I suppose. So now, I like how we have to say Bitcoin Core anymore because of Bitcoin Cash, and now you need to define the difference between them whenever you say it, and that's horrible. But you should just say Bitcoin, and you don't need Bitcoin Core. The only time you need to say Bitcoin Core is when you're talking about the Bitcoin Core wallet. So how does Zcash ensure privacy? Zcash uses a zero-knowledge proof of construction called zk-snark to guarantee transactions without revealing all of the data. This allows transactions to be confirmed without the transaction data being revealed. So key privacy features: every block transaction has been signed to a public key. Public keys are pseudo-anonymous, and there is a risk that the user can be identified. In a ring signature, there are a group of public keys, and any one of them can authorize the transaction. This means the transaction gets signed, but the public key does not. A ring confidential transactions: Monero uses multiple transaction inputs and outputs to hide transactions. Let's see. Stealth addresses for Monero. We won't read all of these. Again, all these links will be in the description below, except probably the YouTube videos, because you can just easily look those up. So stealth addresses, Zcash uses the Z-snark, which allows nodes to ensure the integrity of the network, even though transactions are fully encrypted. So some of the advantages are XMR are fungible, meaning that each coin is exactly the same. For Bitcoin, every coin can be traced back through its entire history and could be identified with illegal activity. This doesn't work for Monero, as each coin cannot be tracked back to its original by using a blockchain explorer. So as transactions are private by default, and as more transactions take place, the layers of obfuscation increase. So I don't know if I would want to say fungible. Fungibility is anything that can be like easily transformed into something else, like money to other money, this, that, or the other thing. So I don't know if that's the best definition. Maybe. I don't know. We'll go with it. There is much more wallet support for Zcash, including Ledger and Trezor, and there are multiple internet wallets available. So the advantage of Zcash. This allows a wider adoption as users have more ways to keep their coins secure. In theory, Zcash has potential for stronger privacy. This is because the encryption software can prove transactions are accurate without supplying the data in a public way. In contrast, Monero tries to make it difficult for users to see which is the real transaction, but there is a possibility of getting it right. So disadvantages of Monero. Recently, a paper was published that identified flaws in the privacy elements of Monero. Researchers managed to identify a correct transaction 90% of the time, even though it was supposed to be unidentifiable. Monero code has since been updated, and this figure has been halved. So disadvantages of Zcash. Zcash uses two different types of addresses: Z, which are private, and T, which are transparent. exchanges only use T addresses. Main wallet support is for T addresses, and these addresses result in lower fees. Most users use these transparent addresses, making it more obvious which transactions are for private transactions. Furthermore, full privacy is reserved for transactions where both addresses are private. It's quite a serious issue for Zcash, as privacy coin is its private functions are used less and disincentivized. So the conclusion, both cryptocurrencies use advanced techniques and algorithms to facilitate proof of transactions. In theory, Zcash has a lot of potential because of the strength of zero-proof transactions, yet its privacy elements are not used in the majority of the transactions, so essentially by default they are not. And there are varying layers of privacy depending on whether the sender and receiver are both using Z addresses. In contrast, Monero's transactions are private by default, which encourages greater use and ensures more security over the network. While there are some compromises in the way it achieves privacy, Monero is currently the better privacy coin in light of it all. So I kind of agree. Now, Zcash is a great coin. I mine Zcash all the time. I think most people do with EcoHash. But it's true that, Zcash isn't private by default, and you kind of have to go out of your way to make it private. Not that it's too hard. Let's see. Polar Pop, $1,000 from Circle K. Boom! Moving on. Bitcoin down in Google searches, but it's still bigger than Beyonce. Interestingly enough, Bitcoin Google search correlate with price. So according to Nicholas Colas, co-founder of Data Trek Research, the drop in searches is a bad sign for prices. So unless it's the other way around, who knows? We use Google Trends to track search queries for Bitcoin as a proxy for potential new buyers, Colas said in an email. Bitcoin needs a new narrative in order to reestablish global attention. I kind of agree. I think everybody, again, they all jumped on the FOMO train, particularly in 2017, particularly about halfway through 2017, and really particularly so, I hate to say that over and over, in the winter. That's when it just exploded in the fall/winter, if you will. And, really it was just because people thought they could get a Lambo. People thought that they'd make $1 million just by essentially buying a little bit and doing nothing with it. That's just a little ridiculous. I don't think in any case I've ever said on my channel that you could make that much money. I never made any kind of clickbait. At least I don't try to. I mean, I suppose like a little bit, you need to make your title at least exciting in a YouTube video. Otherwise, just like forget about views and like why even bother with your channel. But I try to make them as clickbaity as not possible, as little clickbaity as possible. And so I've never made a video where like, oh, I make $20,000. I've made some videos where like, yeah, you can make a lot of money every day depending on how much you put into it. You can make hundreds, you can make $10, you can make $20, you can make $1,000, depending on how much Bitcoin you have and how much you're trading. So I think that's kind of the reason why it was really, really hyped. And when people saw the coin going back down, weak hands just sold it. And they're like, screw that, I don't really want to have anything to do with it. So, we sort of dumped a lot of weak hands, and, we can feel it everywhere. We can feel it in the price. We can feel it in Google searches. We can feel it in exchange trading volume. We can see it in, like I said, like in Google searches, people just simply typing the word Bitcoin or this, that, or the other thing about crypto. We can feel it as YouTubers with views. If you take a look at YouTubers 6 months ago or something, you can just pretty much check virtually any YouTuber that has a long-term crypto channel. Even mine, even people like Trevon James or this, that, or the other. Their videos were much bigger than they were, and that's just because of everybody Googling the term Bitcoin or YouTubing the term Bitcoin or this, that, or the other thing, looking for this, that, and the other thing. And you can tell just by viewership and subscribers that everything is way down, and the interest overall in crypto is way down. So Colas adds that growth, but before I go on, that's just a good thing for a lot of investors who are still very bullish on Bitcoin, because now you can get everything. It's sort of a reset button. If you got into Bitcoin when it was 16,000, and you're like, sure, I'll buy into this, and then it went down, and so you never had the opportunity to buy it at 6,000 or 5,000, and I don't think it'll ever be 1,000 or less again. But it's sort of a reset button. It got to 20,000, and that's just way too much for people to buy into. If you put in $100, you're going to get such a little amount of Bitcoin at that price. But when it goes back down to $6,000, that's your opportunity. That's like saying, okay, the world It was a miracle. It reset on me, for me, and now I can buy in more Bitcoin for my dollar. So Colas adds the growth in new cryptocurrency wallets have only increased by 3.7% this year, as opposed to 7.6% during the last quarter of 2017. When it comes down to it, mainstream media sources like to cast doubt on Bitcoin, despite the natural tendency for searches to correlate with price. Though this is certainly a chicken or the egg argument. Again, just like I said when he said it's a bad sign for prices, and I think more it's not a bad sign for the drop in searches is a bad sign for prices. I think it's more of the bad sign for prices is a drop in searches. So the bad prices is a drop in searches rather than a drop in searches is a bad price. Bad for prices. You get what I'm saying there? I think it's the opposite in my opinion, and that's why it's the chicken or the egg argument. I'm glad they put that in there. So regardless, Bitcoin is still the king of cryptocurrencies and is even proving to be a top contender when it comes to pop culture. In the past month, searches for Bitcoin have been greater than Beyonce and are only a few points below Trump, who is arguably the most recognizable person in the world today because he's the president and he's Trump. When we incorporate a few more popular terms, we see that Bitcoin is more popular than Taylor Swift, or even Kim Kardashian. Most notably, it surpasses the World Cup for most of the year. So despite all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt being spread about waning interest in Bitcoin, the data clearly indicates that the world's most popular cryptocurrency does not need a new narrative and actually has captured global attention. In fact, it was the second most popular Google search term in 2017. Although the 2018 search data indicates a waning interest in Bitcoin for the time being, it also isn't the first time searches have dropped or that the crypto market isn't growing. Over $9 billion have been raised from initial coin offerings this year, which is $5 billion more than all last year, meaning that new Bitcoin-based financial instruments are growing interest, and trading, finance, and Wall Street have been in the headlines all year. So despite the current downtrend in Bitcoin searches, cryptocurrencies are definitely not going away anytime soon. So next article here. Mysterious Chinese Bitcoin whale hoarded 94,000 Bitcoin. So a staff member from a Chinese Bitcoin forum raised eyebrows upon the discovery of a wallet address that has received over 90,000 Bitcoin since the end of March. So at least one individual in China took to the term hodl to heart, as his or her Bitcoin wallet has seen a total of 93,947 Bitcoin transferred to it since March 25th. The wallet's address is yada yada, and it currently possesses 85,947 of the total amount of Bitcoin that it had originally had after selling exactly 8,000 Bitcoin. A member of staff from a Chinese Bitcoin forum shows that an organization called Babby Finances was looking into the wallet's transactions. So according to the statistics gathered, this particular wallet got most of its Bitcoin through wholesale transfers from single accounts. Its second largest source of Bitcoin came from Huobi, a Chinese cryptocurrency exchange. And I have no idea if I'm saying that right, but it's Huobi to me. Following that amount, we see small transfers from smaller wallets totaling 7,800 Bitcoin. Small source of Bitcoin from his wallet is howbtc.com, another Chinese exchange. So we don't know who the controller is behind the mysterious accounts. This is one of the charms of the Bitcoin network. However, with reference to the traditional financial market, the controller of this account may be a long-term investment institution. There was also speculation that this could be an exchange setting up a cold wallet, but the theory fails to fly when we look at the fact that Bitcoin came from two different exchanges. So we find it interesting that the mysterious actor chooses to sell its Bitcoin in bulk increments of 2,000, much how like Mt. Gox's trustees did during the 16,000 Bitcoin sell-off that led to the dip in the price of Bitcoin. So whale's going to own all of the Bitcoin. They are scooping it up in mass, while we think that we are gaining Bitcoin, gaining our little fractional amounts of Bitcoin. I don't think the Bitcoin's ever really going to go to any kind of ridiculous like 500,000 or $1 million like some people think. It would be just simply worth too much, and some people would just simply have too much money. And I just don't think the world can work like that. Too many people, rather, would have too much money. And I just don't think the world works like that. Only certain people can have certain amount of money. Otherwise, the money is essentially just inflated and kind of useless. So if everybody in the world had $1 million, sure, it would help the economy for a while. But then everybody would just increase the price of their goods. It's kind of like raising the minimum wage in a sense. You raised the minimum wage to like something like $15. Well, great. Everybody makes $15 an hour now minimum. But you're going to go to the store after a month after that happens, and the price of a gallon of milk is no longer $4; it's $5, and everything else, because they know that they can just charge more. Another thing about that too is that if everybody was given a substantial amount of money in the world, they would all lose their money very, very quickly. Most people don't know how to make money from money. Most people would just end up going out. They would be paying off their loans. They'd pay off their house. They'd go out and they'd buy a car. It's kind of like lottery winners. They end up going out and giving money to people. They get a big house that they can't afford in a long-term situation. If you buy $1 million house, it's got $1 million upkeep to it. If they're going to go out and buy a Lambo, they go out and do this, that, the other thing. They go and gamble. They go to vacations. And what happens is they end up spending all of their money, and then they're right back in the situation. So if everybody in the world got $1 million, and I know that's absolutely absurd, that is so much money that would just be the most ridiculous thing, but let's just go with it for a second. Everybody in the world got $1 million, we would see everybody broke within a few months. And it would be in the exact same situation, because what people are going to do is they're going to go out and give it right back to the corporations that have been taking their money all along, that they have been gladly giving it to. People are going to go to Walmart and they're just going to buy everything. People are going to go to department stores. People are going to go to corporations. People are going to buy computers from Microsoft. People are going to do this, that, and the other thing. And I understand that economics, they receive money and then they hire new people and then they have to buy new goods. So that goes out again. But for the most part, corporations hoard money. And they just keep developing and developing and developing a bigger bank account and making more and more. And we would see the same thing pretty quickly. So that's kind of how I feel about crypto, is that you could see 80,000 Bitcoin, 93,000 Bitcoin, or whatever, 94, whatever. It's all over the place here, but that's just insane. And it's starting to get more and more like that. More and more wallets are starting to get well over 10,000 Bitcoin. And meanwhile, your wallet is just getting these little fractional amounts as you're mining. Whether you mine $500 a day or $5 a day, it's worth nothing compared to 90,000 Bitcoin. So in the end, I think the whales will just have all of the good crypto anyway. So there's never going to be a system in which we can develop, not that I can think of, that we can develop that will keep rich people out and the poor people will allow them to go up. Because how would that work, right? The rich people would see all the poor people growing and making money from this certain thing, like crypto, like they didn't get into for a while, and then they're just going to buy it all up with all of their superior amounts of funding. So, in the end, there's going to be a time at which you should probably end up just holding for as long as you can, and I don't mean to just sell it all, but I think in the end we're going to see just the same. I think we're way too positive with crypto. I think it's very, very useful for a lot of practical purposes, but thinking you're going to get absolutely rich off of it is absurd, because how many people are into crypto right now? Millions? Tens of millions? Maybe hundreds of millions of people? I doubt a billion, but hundreds of millions of people? Maybe a billion. Do you think every one of those people can be a Bitcoin millionaire? It's just not possible. The millionaires that are already millionaires are going to be even more millionaires in the end. That's what I'm trying to say. Is the institutionalization of crypto market already happening? So Wall Street's enthusiasm for the crypto market is bubbling up while its institutions eagerly await guidance from regulators. In the past few months, major Wall Street players have been getting in on the crypto action. Having starting a trade desk for Bitcoin futures in May 2018, Goldman Sachs is now gearing up for the launch of a Bitcoin trading operation. On Wednesday, reports emerged that Fidelity is looking to start up hiring for crypto projects and possibly build its own digital assets exchange. I should get a hold of Fidelity, put in my application. These moves will likely lend further credibility to the crypto realm. It seems that the institutions are already building operations and simply waiting for the regulatory green light to go on so they can flip the switch. But when is that going to happen? When does the regulators stand on the crypto market? In an exclusive interview for CNBC on Wednesday, SEC Chairman Jay Clayton made it clear that he supports the development of blockchain technology and went on to add it could be especially beneficial to the securities industry. I think the blockchain technology has tremendous promise for the securities industry, eliminating costs. The cost of verification in the security industry is incredibly high. If we can make that more efficient, terrific, they said. The crypto community, however, is eagerly waiting for clarification on three important issues. First, it wants to know whether initial coin offerings are legit and safe, are securities exactly, and are therefore falling under the purview of the SEC. So a security in the sense, so Bitcoin, in my opinion, is not a security. Ethereum, in my opinion, is not a security. However, so if you create your own blockchain and your own proof of work coin, it's not a security. However, if you make a token, an ERC20 token, and let's say you have a website and you make some tokens and people have to buy the tokens to participate with whatever action is on your website, that's okay in my opinion, but that's a security because now you're essentially buying a stake in the company in order to participate in the company. So that's my opinion, but the SEC is going to work on it, I suppose. Whatever. Second, it needs to clarify on altcoins like Ether and Ripple if Ether and Ripple are securities. Excuse me. Finally, the crypto market awaits the criteria the SEC wants met to approve Bitcoin exchange and trading funds. I think Ripple is a security, and I think Ether is not. So if it has its own blockchain, it is not a security because it's not connected to a company necessarily. It's just a bunch of developers. That's not necessarily a corporation. But if you make a corporation or a company or a project like that where you're selling goods or services and you have a token that represents those goods and services or facilitates those goods and services, then it's a security. So Clayton declined to comment on how the SEC would rule on these issues. However, he made it clear that the crypto industry would have to conform to existing rules and regulations regarding the sale of securities. I understand that there's a great deal of discussion about these crypto assets, but again, we are not going to relax on rules based on the level of discussion. We need to know what the pricing is certain, we need to know that the assets are there, and we need to know what is going to function as our retail investors would expect these products to function. And on the same day and during the same event, CNBC also sat down with Brett Redfern? That's an interesting name. The SEC's new trading and markets director asked about whether ICOs or altcoin securities or altcoins are securities. He said, when looking at these issues, it's not as obvious as one would think. We had a number of different products that we looked at, and we created this test. When people look at different characteristics and have to determine if it's a security, and quite frankly, not all of them are obvious on its face exactly what it is. So we will continue to clarify when possible. I think there will be more statements coming from the commission, but in the meantime, we are highly encouraging, oh my God, any market participant who is involved in the space to really look at these products and run tests and decide whether they meet the criteria of being defined as a security. Redfern also declined to comment on whether altcoins are defined as securities, although he refrained from speaking about specific products and whether their future will be determined via litigation. I do believe that there would be some statements on one of these products forthcoming in the future, providing some more guidance on that. So I don't know what is the likelihood of litigation on these specific subjects. So you can see there's a lot of there's just a lot of back and forth with the crypto world. Like, is it a security? Is it not a security? Are institutions going forward? They have to wait for these regulations. They have to wait for these specific rules because they're on a institutional level that they have to follow, or at least most of the time. And when they don't, they'll just get a slap on the wrist and be like, here's a fine of, I don't know, whatever, something that you can afford. But there's still a little bit of the article left to read, which you guys can check out if you would like. But I just kind of wanted to touch on the fact that, institutionalization is going forward, but they're sort of being blocked by these regulations and uncertainties in the crypto world. Is it a security? Is it not a security? Is it regulated? Is it not regulated? Can I do this? Can I do this? And the SEC doesn't really have any answers right now. We need specific written down answers for this. A lot of people just wish the government would get out of it entirely and not regulate it. But I think there should be some regulations in the sense that not the government's running it, not the government's telling you what to do, but rather like something like an ICO if it pops up. Does it have assets to back it? What if it disappears? Can everybody get their assets back? Like how can we prevent this fraud? How can we prevent these scams? And that's what kind of regulation I'm talking about, and not necessarily the bad regulation. But either way, the world is moving on. The world is moving forward, and there's not much we can do about it except give our opinions and hope they are heard. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and as usual, I will see you guys next time.